Hey guys, how's it going? Jay here, and yes, I did go to the 2022 Montreal Audio Fest. Such a fascinating experience, especially after such a long time, lockdown and everything in Canada. And honestly, a breath of fresh air. So, I want to take that journey to you in this video, so you're gonna see a lot of fascinating audio gear in this video. And lots of showcasing. And talking about showcasing, please remember that whatever I say in this video is literally me sitting down and listening to the audio gear for the 10 to 15 minutes. So don't take this as a full-on review, it's definitely not. And especially considering that it takes me months to review a single audio gear properly, definitely take this video with a grain of salt and more for entertainment purposes. With that being said, we're gonna jump right into it. But before that, I just want to say a special thank you to Motet Distributions, who was the sponsor of our trip to Montreal Audio Fest. They made everything so easy, and they are a big distribution company with a very good reputation that carry many of the brands that you will see in this video. So make sure to check them out in the description below. Also, I recently posted a video about my Montreal Audio Fest and how I got robbed. Very unfortunate circumstances, but we know what they say, show must go on. So without further ado, here's the first room. PMC, one of my favorite speakers of all time. The brand is fascinating because it's used in studios a lot, and it definitely is what I call real PMC when it comes to this specific lineup of speakers. They are fascinating in the fact that they kind of have that retro vibe going on, and also the bass driver is very interesting, as you can see here. Not a small speaker. They're quite big in size, and they create a very controlled bass and articulate mids and highs. Usually, in this room, it was pretty well damped, and it was run by AccuPhase gear, which is also gorgeous and pretty expensive. But I just found that it kind of lacked the spark that PMCs have usually with a setup like this. And because I'm familiar with PMC sound, I've heard a fair amount of PMCs before. And so I could kind of reference that, and I found that in this room, it was a little bit of a letdown in that way, but overall, very good sounding room. Next up, in one of my favorite rooms of all time, was Audio Note. It sounded very, very good. We have a full video of Audio Note on the channel recently with Vincent Belanger, who also did this setup. So won't go too much into that in this video, but again, one of my favorite rooms. So the next one is quite interesting. It's called Harmonic Audio, and it's a startup brand. They're using horn designs and compression drivers, it all seems, with tube amplifiers. So really nice wood finishes. Apparently they are using recycled wood, so good for the environment. But honestly speaking, very, very nice setup. Unfortunately, they were in the middle of nowhere setup, so they really wasn't playing much music. But again, it was a really good eye candy, and I definitely wanted to demo it in a more friendly environment at one point for sure. And across from the Harmonic Audio was AudioPro, a Korean brand that is making Bluetooth speakers for high fidelity. And honestly speaking, the design itself is more intriguing to me, and the sound was quite impressive as well. I got a quick demo. Lots of color options and intriguing designs, definitely appeals to the younger generation like myself. This was my favorite finish of all. So very different design language and elements, which I appreciated, and the sound was good. Next up is Dan D'Agostino, the original designer of Krell, if you remember. He's making his own amplifiers and preamplifiers, and he's been doing this for a while. Impeccable design in my opinion, and sound quality. You get that watch-like meters, which are very beautiful. The overall craftsmanship really speaks for itself. And honestly, they sound incredible with the Acora acoustic speakers that was set up in that room. Now, it wasn't my type of sound. Acora acoustic has this really transparent, high frequency that kind of seems to be a little bit too much for my ears. But the design itself is very interesting, using African black granite. And they are made in Canada. And talking about made in Canada, the Korean Audio is also a Canadian brand. And look at that, it's like a tannoy design. I've heard the speaker before and it sounded amazing. And this time I heard it with Ownic. Just a fascinating experience, and honestly sounded so very nice and holographic, one of the best sounding rooms. And talking about dual concentric designs, we have Fine Audio, which we reviewed on this channel before, but this was the higher end stuff being showcased. They were really not playing, and really they were just, being pretty. But what really caught my attention being pretty was the Western Electric here that was not being played. What a shame. Next up, KLH. Yes, the Model 5, one of my favorite speakers, but now the Model 3, the smaller one, was being introduced at the show. which I found fascinating. They were playing them back and forth, and honestly, the Model 3 sounded pretty good in that room, and so did the Model 5. Also, I did a full-on interview with the head engineer, Kerry from KLH, which honestly, what a cool guy. You'll see that full video very soon. Next up, I made a quick stop to Panden Denim setup. Now, I didn't find it to sound good at all. I think it was just the room, but knowing that setup is supposed to sound better. Anyways, moving on, we had Sim Audio and radio setup, and honestly sounded pretty darn good in there. Sim Audio was also showcasing some really nice gear. The room was well balanced and sounded pretty good. I mean, beautiful gear being showcased outside that I wish I heard inside, with really big amplifiers outside as well. I wonder who carried that up there. Is his back okay? Now, everything I've heard up to this point was pretty darn traditional, but mirror audio was something that was not. Transparent, deep soundstage, wide soundstage, quite interesting design. Didn't hear much of this room, just because they're playing weird music. We went to the BMW soon after that, and they were showcasing the Nautilus. We'll have a video on that. And of course, BMW and Macintosh. What a classic setup. Sounded really good, and they had their new Macintosh stuff there as well. Ever in doubt? Macintosh and BMW makes a fantastic match. Now, next up, we made a trip to the Tryout Speakers room, and they were showcasing the open baffle stuff, beautiful bamboo finishes and stuff like that. We also reviewed a speaker from them in this channel, and honestly, it sounded one of like the best rooms. Like, it sounded really open, wide, deep sound stage, you know, full presence. They were also showcasing their new stand that had a subwoofer built in, which I'll be reviewing very soon on this channel as well. Pretty excited about that, but also their speakers sounded just really good. Well, considering that it was at a show. Now, next up is Cube Audio, a full range speaker design that I really haven't heard too much of before. Quite fascinating and really beautiful design in my opinion. And they were having some really nice turntable setup as well. Just a very beautiful and very serious room. We had a speaker that was very impressive, and that was the Apertural audio, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, run with Inuus and Pathos gear. And honestly, the sound so good. This speaker really caught my radar. Another speaker that was very interesting was Bass Audio. Never saw this speaker before, but really caught my eye, and with the REL subwoofers integrated so very well in this room, it was one of the better sounding rooms and really interesting room to visit. I think it was the only room that I spent like good 30-40 minutes just sitting down and talking with the guy there and really enjoying my time there. Dipole design and just a different type of sound. Was really impressed how it sounded so good in a show setting like this. Talking about sounding good, we had the Grand Avantgarde from Gershman. Yeah, we reviewed that speaker on this channel before, but this time we were concentrating more on the Posh, their flagship speaker, which was run by Krell stuff. And honestly, one of the better sounding rooms. Very balanced, and I could tell that they took their time setting these speakers up in this room. As with Gershman acoustic stuff, the bass was impeccable, very good presence, and also the high frequency was very snappy. Just love the overall balanced presentation on this speaker. We also had some new releases being showcased, and we had the KEF Blade 2, the new KEF with the meta material inside. The dealer that was showcasing it, Central Hi-Fi, was kind enough to give us a private demo, and so I had a good time with these speakers, but it just wasn't my expectation. They seemed to lack a little bit of bass control with whatever amplification that was being driven. Not sure if it was the room, the amplification or whatnot, but not a great first impression. I was more impressed with other speakers that he was carrying, and I actually hope to review them very soon if I can get my hands on them. Also, I saw Totem Acoustics, one of my favorite speakers of all time, of course. I didn't really know much about this dealer before, but Central Hi-Fi seems to be carrying all the brands that I really like. So I encourage you to check them out. We also had PS Audio debuting their first speakers, very impressive. And Paul himself came to set it up. So we have a full video on that, so we won't go into too much in this video. But honestly, top three sounding room at the show. Now going into this, my original plan was to cover each room in detail, but you know what they say, it doesn't always go to plan. And for a few reasons. Number one, our memory card just didn't have enough storage, and because of the robbery, we didn't have extra storage, so we just had a limited amount of footage. Number two, I just didn't find it feasible as some rooms just didn't sound that good and not worth the time. Number three, it just didn't make sense to cover gear that has been covered over and over again, and each room has the same gear at times, and it just didn't make sense to cover each room that way. So you'll notice that I've said that these are better sounding rooms, and that's exactly what it is. It's either interesting designs that I found, either aesthetically, or it sounded really good. So these are the rooms, my top picks that you just saw. And now I've shot other stuff that was being showcased, not necessarily being played. So here is some eye candy for you to just indulge yourself in. So that's pretty much it from me. Thank you guys so much for the recent support that you guys all shown, and enjoy.